The latest business indices out of various institutions show depressed business confidence by small and medium-sized enterprises, with the RMB's latest index registering another fall on the back of load shedding and rising interest rates weighing in on profitability. Well, to help us understand the impact of the rate hike on SMMEs and how to make the most of the break that South African Reserve Bank has taken is Sibongile Zulu, who is the Managing Director at Capital Unlocked, and Cuan Hopley, the Chief Financial Officer at Bizcash. Thank you both for joining us. Sibongile, first question is, was there any surprise that the RBZ did not hike those rates?
So I think there was a bit of a surprise because we have been on a rally of consecutive rate hikes. However, because the inflation numbers came below the target of 6%, there was hope that the rates would not go up. However, we are still quite on a high level, so there's still some concerns around that. But it was a bit of an unexpected positive that came out. Although what would be preferred is retreating and pulling back of the rates.
So, Kevin, let's talk about what you do at Bizcash, and before we unpack this entire conversation.
Yeah, so maybe if I can just elaborate, I think like SMEs over the last sort of year, it's almost been this perfect storm in a way, with sort of load shedding and sort of the looting and the floods and the rising interest rate cycle. So I sort of tend to agree that I don't think we're sort of out of it, and that SMEs are sort of really boxing hard at the moment and struggling. I think we've got to sort of, as an alternative lender, which Bizcash is, we've got to be there to sort of support those SMEs on this journey and try and get them through what I believe is a really tough time. I sort of tend to agree. I think there's a little bit of a headroom that I think we're probably in for another 25 basis points hike over the next couple of months before we'll sort of see some stabilisation and a sort of pivot downwards.
So SARB's position here is not so much a reprieve, is it?
No. No. So again, I think it's almost just a little pause, and I think there's definitely upside of probably at least 25 basis points over the next couple of months before I think we'll see any sort of pivot downwards. So I think it's really sort of important for SMEs at the moment to just be conscious of it, and I think we're seeing across our sort of client base a real bunkering down and sort of turning every cent and making the best of the cards that they've been dealt, but also really seeing a sort of a positive outlook. I think at the moment our clients are quite optimistic about the opportunities that they're seeing. There might be a lot of consolidation in certain industries and grabbing market share where they can, and seeing all these little pockets of opportunities. So I think if you look at it from a different lens and look at it from your glass half full, I think there are certainly opportunities that SMEs can sort of take use of.
So how do business owners manage credit responsibly and obviously balance this around their own personal credit?
And it starts with that. It starts with the personal finance management, which filters into the business. So ideally, you need to know where you are, where you stand financially. And I urge businesses to sit down with their financial advisors, sit down with their financial leads, their accountants, to really understand where they are in terms of their position. Starting off with looking at cash flow, looking at runway, look at your debt obligations. How much do you really owe? At what interest rate? Is there an opportunity to restructure some of the debt? Because some of it may have been taken for very good reasons. You probably were thinking there's growth on the horizon, there's expansion, there's new markets to go into. So I always start with mindset with everything that I do and say that, we need to change our mindsets and accept where we are and accept the challenges that we are facing, but we need to take charge. So by looking at your finances, you're taking charge of your status quo and saying, this is where things are, and see them for what they are, not what we wish they were. And then once you've done that exercise and you've sitting with your financiers, if there's a way of some wiggling room, if you can buy time, and do that before things really run away from you, because then it becomes a big problem. And then one other part is managing your credit score. So making sure that whatever you do, you guard that with your life, because you will need to have a good credit score for future indebtedness that you may have to take on more debt. So making sure that you safeguard that on a personal front, and making sure that the business looks good as well, so that financiers out there can consider you with better rates because you've managed your cash flow quite well. And then another part is looking at your internal operations. If there are any efficiencies that can be brought on, look at how your operations are set up. Talk to your staff, let them know what is happening if you know you're facing a cash crunch, and look for suggestions from them as well, especially the ones that deal with customers. And then lastly, what I like to talk about as well is making sure that you speak to existing clients. It's a lot easier to keep your existing clients than to get new ones. So you probably want to double down on marketing and business development exercises as well. So make sure that you have good visibility, you are active in the market, your existing clients know the value that you offer, and find ways of coming up with new value propositions or curtailing the ones you have.
Well, let's bring Cuan into the conversation. Now, Cuan, Sibongile has talked a lot about financing. So let's look at financing models, because it's a big issue. Now, up until last week, we knew that every so often, the Reserve Bank was coming out, and they weren't coming out to play, right? So what are the financing options that are available to SMEs? Now, one of the things that I've certainly observed is for businesses that are looking to capitalize their business, small business, some of them are looking at crowdfunding, for instance. Yeah. Is this one of those options that local businesses can look at?
Yeah, so I think it depends on the stage of the business and that sort of life cycle journey. If they're really early stage, I totally agree with you. You're probably looking at a sort of a venture capital, crowdfunding, sort of angel investors. You're probably looking at friends and family and some savings to give you a bit of a runway to get you through. But I think, as you sort of piggyback sort of through that sort of first phase, there's a lot of sort of alternative funding sort of optionality, that is a little bit different from your sort of traditional lenders, and that has, can sort of access that capital really quickly for specific use cases. I always say it's about sort of balancing the products that you sort of taking out to a certain use case, and sort of not getting yourself sort of boxed into a product that's going to cause you more harm in the future than you should. So making sure that the lend and the product that you're in and let's call it the repayment profile and the pricing of that product sort of matches what you need the cash for. Always try and understand what the sort of cash requirement is and what you're going to be using it for, and then try and match the product accordingly.
Now, Sibongile, you talked a little bit about credit terms and watching your credits and so on. But let's talk about negotiating those credit terms, right? You talked about conversations. Those conversations are with the bank or the financial institution that has loaned you that money or availed you that credit. You also talked about speaking to customers and your own staff. So how easy are those conversations with the Bizcashes of this world? Is it as simple as we might make it out to seem? What do you need to take to that conversation?
Sure. You need to start in-house and get the support of your financial lead. If you have an accountant in-house, speak to them first. And start understanding your financial position better, because then you'll be better armed. I mentioned the staff conversations are not easy about when it comes to challenges. However, if you face anything alone, you start to think that the world is weighing heavy on your shoulders, and maybe there could be some tweaks that could come out of the conversations internally. So it's not easy, but I believe that it's better to start inside your own business before you go out. You need to be armed with information where you understand your business operations, you understand the environment that you're operating in, and also be mindful of your customers as well. What challenges are they facing? Because the interest rates impact everyone along the value chain. So what wiggling room is there? take a look at your competition as well. See if there's certain moves that they are making that maybe you can learn from them. There's nothing wrong with looking at what others are doing and saying maybe they're pulling back on certain things. So go armed with information before you go and speak to external parties. Talking to bankers is not an easy conversation, but if you need to have inculcated a good relationship with your relationship manager at the bank. So it's not as if they won't speak to you, they won't put their guard up, because if you take them along the journey, if you keep them updated on what's happening in the business, they're there to support you as well. And then if you talk to financiers like Cuan and them, they have quite a variety of instruments. Like you mentioned, it's about what stage of the business are you at, what type of financing do you need. I always advise businesses that they should be, even if they're not engaging with financiers yet, if they don't need the funding, but they need to be aware and they need to educate themselves about what is out there so that when it's time to have a conversation, you're not doing it under pressure. Because then you don't have a lot of negotiating power, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's all about the relationship. If we look at it from a lender's perspective, if our clients are honest with us and they give us the data and they're happy to have an adult conversation with us earlier rather than later, it gives us the opportunity to pivot. It's maybe a restructure here or there. Maybe I need to actually give the client a little bit more money to get him out of a tough situation. So it's very relationship driven, and there are tough conversations to have. But I think if you've cultivated that relationship over a period of time, it's easier to have than I think most people think. We're not all terrible at the end of the day. Not all of you. Not all of us. We're normal commercial people.
So let's talk about the defaulters over the last, 18, 24 months. Has there been an increase in the defaulters?
Yeah, so I think we're seeing a lot of strain in the markets. Touch woods, from a Bizcash perspective, it's been a fantastic sort of barometer test for our business over the last 18, 24 months, and we've come out of it really well. So I think that's just testament to, again, I think a lot of resilience of South Africans and boxing hard, and also I think from a Bizcash perspective, applying strong credit principles and getting our knitting and our basics right, and making sure that we're doing the small things correctly. And again, I think it comes down to the relationship that we have with our clients, and staying close to them in tough times is, I think, very important, and trying to hold their hand a little bit when required to get them through a tough period. But I think on the whole, we are seeing some strain in the market. It's obviously increases demand for working capital solutions, which is great for us. But I always say it's nice and easy to lend money, but you've got to collect it at the end of the day. So we've got to make sure that we're lending to the right people, to the right operators, the right jockeys that are running these businesses, because I think there's some fantastic entrepreneurs at the moment that are making use of these opportunities to build some great businesses that they can be really proud of in a couple of years.
Sibongile and Cuan, appreciate your time this afternoon. That was Sibongile Zulu, Managing Director at Capital Unlocked, as well as Cuan Hopley, the Chief Financial Officer at Bizcash.